Hey guys, welcome to science class. Today we're going to be learning all about fuels. So we kind of touched upon this topic a few days ago, but today we're going to learn a lot more about them. So you're going to be needing your textbook scans, pages 102 and 103, and we're going to do workbook page 75 together. All right, let's go ahead and read the textbook pages first and then review the major concepts through PowerPoint. At work. If you tried to burn a piece of granite, you would find it very difficult. It would take a tremendous amount of heat to do so. You also would have to use much more energy than you could gain from the hot rock. Some kinds of matter are good sources of thermal energy, though. These kinds of matter are often called fuels. Fuel sources. A fuel is any substance that releases energy when it burns. Some common fuels are wood, oil, gasoline, and natural gas. Each contains matter that releases thermal energy by a chemical change. As the fuel burns, some of it changes into thermal energy. Some of the fuels that we use are known as fossil fuels. Fossil fuels were formed when the remains of plants and animals were buried quickly during the Genesis flood. Fossil fuels include coal, crude oil, and natural gas. The worldwide flood of Noah's day, recorded in Genesis chapter 7 and 8, can account for the abundance of fossil fuels that we find in the world today. There are still large quantities of fossil fuels around the world, but these fuels are often described as non-renewable. A non-renewable resource is one that is no longer forming today. Another form of fuel is wood. This fuel has been used throughout history. Today, many people use fossil fuels instead of wood. However, there are still places in the world where wood is the only available fuel. Unlike fossil fuels, wood is a renewable resource, which means that it can be replaced. New trees can grow naturally, or people can plant new ones. Got coal here, natural gas that we use to cook, crude oil, and wood. Fuel uses. So how do we use fuel? Releasing thermal energy is usually the purpose for burning a fuel. Many people burn fuel to keep warm in cold weather. As fuels burn, they can heat homes and other buildings. Natural gas, heating oil, coal, and wood are all common fuels used for heating. However, fuels are not just used to heat homes. Some people use natural gas to cook food, dry clothes, or heat water. Sometimes wood is used to cook food as well. Power plants use fuel to produce electricity. The burning fuel gives off thermal energy. This energy heats water and produces steam. The steam is used to turn a propeller-like device called a turbine. The turbine then turns a generator to produce the electricity. Many other industries also burn fuels. Without heat from fuels, many products could not be made. For example, iron ore, a rock-like mineral used to make steel, must be melted to remove any impurities. However, the melting point of iron is very high, about 1,535 degrees Celsius to melt iron. Fossil fuels produce the very high temperatures needed for this process. Once the impurities are removed from the liquid iron, it is mixed with other substances and poured into molds. As the metal cools and solidifies, it forms many of the steel products that you use. Most forms of transportation involve the burning of fuels made from crude oil. Almost all cars burn gasoline made from crude oil. Large trucks use diesel fuel, which is also made from crude oil. Even jet fuel is a product of crude oil. So, fuel is obviously super important for transportation. Let's go ahead and review what we just read. Okay, so in your own words, please tell me, what is fuel? Yeah, fuel is any substance that releases energy when it burns. Okay, and what are fossil fuels? Yeah, so it's a type of fuel. They were formed during the Genesis flood, during Noah's day. So they are remains, which mean like dead parts, dead remains of plants and animals that were buried quickly during the Genesis flood. The book talks about two types of fuels, non-renewable and renewable, okay? So here we have some examples of renewable energy, which, what does that mean again? They can be replaced. Okay, so examples: wind energy, geothermal, hydropower, solar, biomass. And the book also talked about wood, how that can be replaced because we can plant trees. Non-renewable energy, on the other hand, cannot be replaced. So we got fossil fuel oil. And what I meant for non-renewable energy is that these things are not being formed today. Okay, so we got coal, natural gas, etc. So we can use it, right? They're available, but it's just not forming anymore today. So we got some examples here. Wood, what kind of energy is that? Renewable, very good. The book also talked about examples on how we use fuel in every single day. So what are some examples that you can think of how you use fuel today or yesterday or even throughout this whole week? Pause the video and tell me what you can think of. So some examples that I thought of. We obviously use fuel for heat. I guess not as much anymore because it's starting to get warm out. We use it to cook delicious food, to boil water, to dry clothing if you have a dryer at home. And of course, your parents probably use fuel to go to work when they take the car or even the public transportation, etc. Now, we're going to kind of talk about what a byproduct is. I said there was an error in the to-do list. We also want to read page 104. So let's go ahead and do that. Unwanted heat. It's over here. Often when energy changes from one form to another, thermal energy is also produced. Sometimes the heat is the desired result. At other times, though, the heat is not wanted. In these cases, it is a waste product or byproduct. The heat from a light bulb is an example of this. The electrical energy in the light bulb produces light. Light is the desired form of energy, but the light bulb also gets very hot. The energy that produces the light also creates heat. This heat is a byproduct. Unwanted heat can sometimes damage equipment. For example, when a car engine burns fuel, the engine produces mechanical energy. This energy moves the car, but it also produces heat. Some of this heat is a byproduct. If not removed, it will cause the engine to get too hot. To prevent that, a car radiator uses fluid to transport heat away from the engine. A fan near the engine also helps move away extra heat. So we talked about this on Tuesday. Remember, we answered the study guide with this? Other machines also use fans to remove unwanted heat. A computer produces a lot of heat as electricity moves through its parts. This heat could damage sensitive parts of the computer. So a fan in the computer moves heat away from these parts. Even your body has its own type of cooling system called sweating. God designed the human body to maintain a certain temperature range. When you exercise, though, your body converts energy from one form to another, and this produces extra heat. The blood in your body carries this heat close to your skin's surface so it can be released, and your body may also produce sweat. The sweat evaporates on your skin and helps cool your body. Because of this loss of water, though, you should drink plenty of fluids when you exercise, like water. Replacing the fluids helps maintain your body's cooling system. This is why we always drink water after coming back from PE class. Okay, so a byproduct is a waste product. And like we talked about, not all heat is wanted, right? It's not necessarily good for the planet oftentimes. This example of the laptop also, when your computer gets really hot, we have the fan to cool it down. Sweating helps cool our bodies down. Some other examples of unwanted heat, power plants and microdust, things that can contribute to pollution. All right, so that was our lecture. Let's look at the chart on our workbook, page 75. So we're gonna run through this together, okay? So this chart, let's observe it a little. So there's two parts, supply sources. So the sources of fuel, we got petroleum, natural gas, coal, renewables, so things that can be replaced, and nuclear power. Demand sectors, so areas where all of this fuel is needed and used. Use it for transportation, industries need it to create products, industrial, residential, and commercial, so those are like our houses and also companies. Electric power for light, right? So these lines that draw, for example, petroleum. Which sectors need petroleum? Transportation, industrial, residential, commercial, and electric power, okay? So this workbook will also tell us what all of these other numbers mean. So let's go through this. Number 1, petroleum is another name for crude oil. What are some ways that it's used? So we just talked about this. It's used in transportation, industrial, residential, commercial, and electric power. The video here if you need a second to jot that down. Number 2, which fuel source is used the most? So these are our fuel sources, supply sources. Look at the bars. Which one is the longest? Or which percentage is the highest? Petroleum. So petroleum is the source that is used the most. Number 3, which fuel source then is only used in one sector? So as a reminder, these are our sectors, right? So which fuel source is used only once? Is only used in one sector? Nuclear, right? There's only one line going. It's used for electric power. 4, look at the lines connecting natural gas to the demand sectors. The numbers underneath the percent of source heading tells you what percent of that fuel is used by the different sectors. What percentage of the natural gas supply is used for residential commercial use? Okay, let's break this down. So natural gas supply, residential, commercial. Natural gas, residential, commercial. Okay. The numbers underneath the percent of source. So percent of source. These are the numbers underneath, okay? So these numbers tell us what percent of natural gas is used by residential and commercial sector, okay? So this sector, like the housing sector area, uses what percentage of natural gas? So it says, look at the line connecting residential and natural gas, 35%. That one was a little tricky. Number 5, which demand sector uses the most coal? So now we're looking at coal. Which one of these guys use the most coal? Okay. Okay. Industrial uses 7%. Residential, commercial, not that much. Whoa, 93%. Electric power. Use a lot of coal. Number 6, the percentages in the yellow boxes for the demand sector help you identify how much of the total fuel available each sector uses to provide energy. Which sector uses the most fuel? So I know you can't see because of the scan, but these are supposed to be yellow. So the question is, which sector uses the most fuel in general? We got electric power with a whopping 41%. And lastly, the numbers under the percent of sector heading tell you how much of that sector's energy needed is supplied by that fuel, how much of transportation's energy needs are supplied by petroleum. So transportation, petroleum, let's take a look at the percent of sector. Percent of sector, right? It says, look at the line drawing these together, 94%. Okay, so let's write that down. And that is it, you guys. Great job for science class. I will see you soon for reading. Bye.